Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Jamie Gallagher and I help people make online meetings and events as engaging, accessible and inclusive as possible. Today we're going to be diving into the wonderful world of Zoom settings and showing you how you can set up your meeting to be safe, secure and in control. Zoom settings. If you've gone onto the Zoom website and clicked on the settings tab, you'll notice there's a lot of them. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to bring up my screen and just go through each one and explain what it means, whether you should have it turned on, turned off, and how you use it. So join me as we go step by step through the world of Zoom settings. So here we are inside Zoom settings. All I've done is I've logged onto the website and I've clicked settings in the toolbar down the side. This gives us lots of options. Let's scroll through and we'll tick off all the most important ones. The first thing you'll encounter in the security tab is that you are required to have one security method in all of your meetings. You won't be able to change that. It's a good thing. Next thing, waiting room. I recommend that you turn it on. A waiting room is a holding area so that when someone joins your meeting, they're put into a separate area until you're ready to let them into the main meeting. It's really, really useful if you want to go into your room first, set things up, test things out before people start arriving. Gives you a lot of control. It's like locking the door, and you can let people in one by one, or you can let them flood in en masse. Turn on the waiting room just to get that extra bit of control. Waiting room options, you can upload a bit of a description or an image alongside it. Meeting passcode, yes, turn it on. So that means if someone has the meeting ID, they would still need to enter a password in order to get access to the room. That will be checked by default. Personal meeting ID passcode, if you use your personal meeting account, I would turn it on. I don't use my personal meeting account, I just create a new Zoom room every time I want a meeting. Webinar passcode, yes, turn it on. Don't have meetings without passcodes. These options will normally be turned on by default. But have a passcode on your meeting, have a passcode on your personal meeting, have a passcode on your webinar meeting. Require passcode for participants joining by phone. Well, what do you think I'm going to say to this? Yes. Checking this box, the only difference it makes is your password, instead of being alphanumeric, will just be numeric. So if someone is phoning in, they'll still be able to join the call. Although, is anyone joining Zoom by call? I'm not finding it. Anyway, next thing, embed passcode and invite link for one-click join. Yes, do this. I'm a big fan. This means that you get a big long URL for your meeting. And if someone clicks it, they'll immediately be sent into either the waiting room or to join the meeting. It's not really risky. There is a passcode embedded in that URL. Because it's long, someone can't guess it. Someone can't randomly type in the letters and numbers and try and join your meeting. So it's still a safe and secure meeting link. It just avoids people clicking on a link and then having to enter in a password, because it does both of those things in one go. So I do recommend you turn that on to get an unguessable URL. Only authenticated users can join the meeting. This is something that's optional to you. So this would mean that they would need to register with their email so that someone has a Zoom account before they're let in. Depends what you're going to do. If you want to be really safe and secure, then turn it on so that everyone coming into your room is registered and using an account. But if you are running public facing events, you want to make joining as easy as possible. So you might not want to have that turned on. So that is a very much an optional one. If you want a very secure meeting, I'd recommend that you turn it on. If it's a public facing meeting, I would probably have it off. Scrolling down, so we've got meeting authentication options there. If waiting room is enabled, phone users will be placed in the waiting room. If waiting room is not enabled, phone dialers users will. So options whether people can phone in or not. Only authenticated users can use the web client, so that's another option. Again, I turn it off. I'm not too bothered about people having an actual Zoom account and being authenticated. Approved or block entries from specific countries. Well, that's kind of what it says in the tin. That's going to be up to you whether that's important. Here we go. Scheduling meeting. Host video. Start meeting with host video on. I would say yes. Participant video. Start meeting with participants video on. Entirely up to you. Maybe you want a more controlled start where everyone joins with the camera off. This box will mean that the default is that their camera will be on from the start of the meeting. Audio type, I normally have telephone and computer audio selected. Again, just increasing the flexibility of the options, and it's not going to make a difference to quality. So I'd normally have telephone and computer audio selected. Allow participants to join before host? No. Turn that off. Why is that even an option? This is how Zoom bombing happens. If someone is able to join without anyone being in control at all, I don't like this. So I would recommend that you turn off. That means that you as the host need to go in and start the meeting. I always like to have someone in control before people can join in. If you have that turned on, anyone will be able to join that meeting at any point, whether you're there or not. Enable personal meeting ID, again, it's optional. I don't bother using my personal meeting room. I always just create a Zoom link instead. Again, that's personal meeting ID, personal meeting ID. Mute participants when they join a meeting. Yes. Have that one ticked, definitely. Mute all participants when joining. Otherwise, you'll hear a lot of things. I've heard a lot of things I don't want to hear. So make sure that is turned on. Upcoming meeting reminder, well, that's up to you if you want a notification or not. In meeting basic now. Require encryption for 3D party endpoints. By default, Zoom, what does this even mean? I have it turned off. Turn on this setting to require encryption for third-party endpoints. In all honesty, I don't know what that means, so I just left it off. Sorry. Google that one. Chat. Yes. Chat box is quite important. Now, this one is again optional. Prevent participants from saving chat. I don't have that checked. So participants could save the chat. The reason I don't have it checked is someone could screen grab it anyway. That would make it a more inconvenient thing for them to transcribe. But even if you tick that, people will be able to record a copy of the chat whether they want it or not. So I just leave it blank. Private chat. Here is one that you do have a decision to make on. Allow meetings to send one-to-one messages to another. I normally have that on because I find it quite useful to have maybe a private discussion about the meeting logistics, or if there's a problem, someone is able to message me privately. It is a question mark one though, because particularly if you're working with vulnerable groups or maybe school children, I would be in favour of turning the one-to-one messaging off, so that the participants won't be able to message each other. That just means that all the communication is going to be visible, which is quite important for a security point of view. I will just highlight though, the meeting host can always see private messages, so if they download the transcript, private messages do appear, which is pretty creepy. Automatically saving chats, up to you. I normally have it on, because when people are sharing links, you probably want to go back and find them. It's easy to forget to save the chat before you close, so I have that turned on. Sound notifications, up to you. I have them off. I just find them distracting. File transfer, I have this off. Again, for security, I don't want people sharing files with each other because I don't want anything malicious shared. So with meetings, control is quite important. So turning this off just provides me more control. People cannot send files to each other. There's other ways they can do that, but it won't happen in my Zoom room. Feedback to Zoom, I just turn that off. End of meeting feedback survey, just turn that off. Co-host, yes, really important, particularly for big meetings. This will allow you to have other people who are able to share screen, manage breakout rooms, and just help you run your session. I do recommend that you allow co-hosts. Meeting polls, yes, you don't have much to lose by turning that on. Webinar polls, yes, why are these even an option? Enable it. If you don't use it, you don't use it. Always show meeting control bar. Yes. It's the answer to that one. Just turn it on. It's always going to be useful. It's not going to get in your way that much. You can move it. But having the security tab, having the microphone off, camera off, functions all right there across your screen is definitely worth a small portion of that screen being covered by a toolbar. Show Zoom windows during screen share. Well, I've got that turned off. It's kind of up to you. I think most times you do want it turned off because when you're sharing the screen, chances are you're not going to want to share the Zoom functionality. You're probably going to be sharing PowerPoint or something. So I would turn that off just so that the screen is clear as possible rather than having all little boxes on it. But if you're doing an explainer session, showing people how Zoom worked, you'd need it on. But there we go, I'd keep that one off. Screen sharing. So again, just going through these one by one. Hopefully this is of use to you and you're scrolling through and doing them the same. Screen sharing. Allow hosts and participants to share their screen during meetings. Yes, it's really, really useful, and you're probably a feature you're already familiar with. Here is your option though. Hosts can share, all participants can share. Host can share. Only host. I'm a fan of this. Again, it's a control thing. And the way that I don't let people send files to each other or necessarily send private messages to each other, I don't want someone else sharing the screen because they want to share a screen. If I want them to have that ability, I'll make them a co-host and they then can share it. So I normally have it as only the host can share. Who can share when someone else is sharing? Again, host only. Disable desktop screen sharing for meetings you host. It doesn't make too much difference. So this is just kind of whether you can share your desktop or not. I don't really understand why that's an option. Annotation. Now this is an interesting one. Most people don't realise that annotation is turned on by default. That means that someone can just scribble across your slides while you're screen sharing. It doesn't happen because most people don't realise it's actually there. But if you don't want annotation, then turn it off. If you do want annotation, turn it on. But be aware that it's a feature. So if you're going to share screen, chances are other people will be able to draw on it. If you're okay with that, then you plough ahead. Or you can also, I probably do recommend that only the user who's sharing can annotate, unless you do want anyone to be able to scribble on your screen. You can remove it, but again, I've been bitten by people drawing things. Whiteboard. Yes, turn it on. Just have all these options on. Why would you not want the ability to do something in your meeting? This just means you can bring up a blank screen and people can write or draw on it. So even if you don't use it, at least turn it on. Remote control. No, I don't like this one. That means that you're able to control someone else's computer or screen. It's a bit clunky. It's easier just to control your own screen. So if it's controlling someone else's PowerPoint or something, work out another system. Don't control each other's screens. It's just messy. Non-verbal feedback, yeah, turn it on. Doesn't do any harm. There's a little icon to say speed up or slow down. I've never seen anyone use them, but it does no harm for them to be there. Meeting reactions, yeah, they're cute. That's like people applauding and giving you thumbs up. May as well. This one has a question mark above it again. Allow removed participants to rejoin. I'm always worried that I remove someone by mistake and then they're not able to rejoin. So currently it is turned off, but I'm not terribly sure about it. If it's turned off, it means you kick someone from the meeting, they stay kicked. If you turn it on, you will have the ability for them to rejoin. Depends. Although I've got it off, it's one I'm not sure about. Up to you. Allow participants to rename themselves. Again, this one has a bit of a question mark about it. It's useful in a meeting where someone can rename themselves. They can maybe add additional information. Maybe they want to add their pronouns to their name. And that's done sometimes when they're in the session. They realise other people are doing it and that's what they want to do, or they want to add their organisation to the end of their name. That's great. When it gets a little more complicated is imagine you are Zoom bombed. Imagine something bad is happening and participants start changing their name. If you've got 100 people in your room and the bad person is continuing to change their name, it could get confusing for you. So you might want to have it on, you might want to have it off. If you want to be really, really safe and secure, you turn it off, because again, you want to have as much control as possible. The chances of it being misused are very slim, but I just want to highlight all of the options. Hide participant profile pictures in a meeting. Now currently I've got that turned off, but I do vary on this one. Again, it's about control. If you have that turned on, then people won't show profile pictures when their camera's off. That can be useful. It can be useful because you don't have any control as to what their profile picture would be. So they could set their profile picture to be something offensive or something disruptive, and that means when you stop their camera, you do actually bring up something negative on screen. By turning this on, you're increasing control. So only images that you want shared can be shown. So that's an optional one. Let's move on to in-meeting advanced now. Report to Zoom. Yes, you may as well have that on. If you encounter a problem, you may as well report someone. Question answer in webinar. So again, this is for a webinar rather than a meeting. So if you don't use webinar, it doesn't matter. But yes, I would turn it on. And question answer sessions in webinars run slightly differently. So there's a separate box where people can submit questions. Breakout rooms. Yes, turn them on. If you're using Zoom, chances are breakout rooms is a big part of the reason why you're using it. So I do recommend that you turn that on. That option allow hosts to assign participants to breakout rooms when scheduling. Just schedule it when they're there. Like, just assign them randomly is the easiest thing to do, or allow them to assign themselves. To do it before the meeting actually is more hassle than you think it might be. So I wouldn't tick that. Remote support, I don't really know what it is, and I'm not going to turn it on. Closed captioning, yes, if you've got it, then make sure this is turned on. And I also tick the enable live transcription to show on the side panel. That just means that if your Zoom account is already enabled, you'll be able to have automatic captions, or you can connect a third-party program like Otter or Rev, and you can have closed captions or subtitles down at the bottom of your screen, which is fantastic. The option of the live transcription just means that people can have, as well as the subtitles down the bottom, they can, instead of the chat bar, they can have a transcription, so they can see all of what has been said on camera. So I do enable both of those features because they're very useful. Save captions, again, it's up to you. Language interpretation, really useful if you are needing multiple languages interpreted. I'm not going to explain what it does, but it's really useful. And if you're bringing in professional translators and having people speaking multiple languages, it's a fantastic feature in Zoom, but it's quite niche. So I'll just scroll on past. Far end camera control. No, don't allow other people to take control of cameras, even if they have to agree to it. Just turn that off. Again, creepy feature. Group HD video. Yes, 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 yes. You're not going to get HD anyway. Let's not kid ourselves. Zoom servers are not quite up to HD standard yet. They're pretty far away from it. I wouldn't even say they're creeping up to standard definition yet. But turn it on with an air of optimism. This means that if there are more than 2 people in the meeting, it will still endeavour to give you the best camera quality that it can. HD is a joke though. Virtual background, we're still going. We're through most of them, but just stick with me. Virtual backgrounds, again, optional. They're nice because they allow people not to have to show the environment that they're in, which I like. They are, however, another way of people displaying images that you can't control. So that's the question mark over them. If you want full control over what people are showing and how people are presenting, you turn it off. If you're going to be generous and assume that people are going to use things in a sensible way, you turn it on. I would turn it on because the benefits to me outweigh the negatives. Hopefully you've set meeting controls right back up at the top, so only people that are very sensible and engaging in a sensible way are joining your meetings. So allow them to use a virtual backdrop if they want. Video filters. If you want to turn up at court, appearing as a cat, you are going to enable this feature. If you don't want to appear as a cat, you might not need to. Zoom have these little filters built in where you can have a moustache or you can have a beret. The novelty is quickly vanishes, but turn it on if you want a little play with it, or just to confuse people, because most people, like the annotation, won't know that it's there. Where are we? Identify guest participants in the meeting webinar. It doesn't matter whether they're a guest or whether they're just logged in their account. I don't really know what that's about. Just miss it out. Auto answer in group chat. No. Only show default emails. No. Use HDMI for Outlook. Up to you. Allow users to select stereo. Sure. Why not? I've got it turned off. Allow users to select original sound in their client settings. Yes. Turn that on. Original sound, if you're playing music or playing videos, will give you a better quality than the non-original sound, which tailors it for voice. So if you're doing non-voice content, you definitely want to have that option enabled. Show a join from your browser link. Sure, why not? Turn it on. Allow live streaming of meetings. Yes, if you're going to be live streaming. Again, turn it on. Doesn't mean you have to live stream, but you may as well have the feature there. Allow live stream of webinars. Exactly the same point. When webinars reach capacity, remind users to watch live stream. Sure, turn it on. But most of the time when I'd be live streaming, I'd be using an RTPM anyway, which makes that option defunct. This option will work if you are just ticking go live on Facebook or ticking go live on YouTube and allowing Zoom to organize that for you. Zoom can then redirect to the the YouTube page that they have created. If you are going to set up your own YouTube event or you're streaming to your own website, do not tick that box because it will send people to the wrong place. Show a custom disclaimer when starting or joining the meeting. If you've got a disclaimer to show, then yeah, sure. Permission to unmute. Request permission to unmute. Select this option if the scheduler to request permission to unmute meeting participants. Permissions once given. No. Like, don't control other people's devices. I think we're at the bottom of most of the useful sections now. Email notifications, well, that's going to be up to you. Other, blur a snapshot on iOS App Switcher. Sure, not really terribly important option there. Inviting by email, skip by this, schedule privilege, and we're done. Hooray! So there we go. We have reached the bottom. Thank you for sticking with me. If you're still there, well done. Let me come back onto my normal camera. That is the Zoom settings. Now, I did want to scroll through that. Granted, not the most exciting video that I've ever made, but hopefully useful. Sit down with this, go through each option one by one. Try and work out if that's important for your meeting or not. What I would say is, if control is very important, then make sure you have as much control as possible. Zoom does give you lots of different options. If you are quite happy that the security is set up quite tightly and you know how to manage a room correctly, then you will be able to use more features like virtual backdrops, annotation, whiteboards, one-to-one private chat. These are options that you can use to enhance the meeting experience, providing you have kept it safe and secure in the first place. So I hope that's been of use to you. If you've got any questions, then leave them in the chat box below and I'm happy to answer them for you. But for now, thank you very much for joining me and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.